1 million miles from Earth, humanity captured an echo. We used the Planck Space Telescope to photograph the oldest light in existence, the thermal radiation left over from the Big Bang. This is the cosmic microwave background, or CMB. It's a map of the universe's remnant heat, where red and blue spots show tiny temperature fluctuations from 13 billion years ago. Those spots are the literal blueprint for everything around us. When astrophysicists calculate the exact mass and energy required to create that map, they get a very specific, rigid breakdown. Roughly 70% of the universe is dark energy, 25% is dark matter, and less than 5% is visible matter. For decades, researchers assumed the universe simply exploded into these highly specific ratios by pure random chance. But a new theoretical framework called ODTOE asks us to drop the assumption of randomness. It suggests that these exact numbers correspond perfectly to the only mathematically possible outcome of an invisible, three-dimensional geometric structure. At the core of this theory is a shape, a torus or donut shape, whose proportions are dictated by the golden ratio. The golden ratio is a mathematical constant, approximately 1.618, found throughout nature, that allows for maximum structural stability. Imagine taking a pen and drawing a single continuous spiral line that wraps around the surface of this perfectly proportioned shape. The mathematical rules governing how that single line wraps around the torus dictate the exact composition of the cosmos. In 1882, mathematician Ferdinand von Lindemann proved a strict property of the number pi. He showed that pi is a transcendental number, which means it does not satisfy any algebraic equation with rational coefficients. In simpler terms, it is completely untethered from simple, tidy geometry. Because pi is transcendental, a golden ratio spiral faces a limitation. It loops around the torus forever, never perfectly returning to its start. The lines come close, but miss. Every rotation leaves a microscopic gap, a tiny sliver of empty space. This is an unbreakable geometric law. It is a permanent error embedded in an otherwise perfectly proportioned mathematical object. Mapping this geometry onto the known universe, the proportions align. The massive outer surface perfectly matches the 70% belonging to dark energy. The tighter interior rotation corresponds to 25% dark matter, and that unclosable gap equals the less than 5% left over, the visible matter, the light. The physical reality we inhabit exists exclusively within this tiny mathematical remainder. Since the absolute value of pi cannot change, the spiral cannot stop. It must continue to draw itself infinitely, missing the mark and shifting slightly outward with every subsequent loop. This relentless geometric shifting pushes the boundaries of the shape outward. It provides a purely mathematical engine for the accelerating expansion of the universe, an engine that cannot be turned off. Physicists have recorded data that points towards this exact kind of engine. Detectors built to measure gravitational waves have picked up a rhythmic pulsating pattern rippling through the fabric of space. This chart shows the 2D wave spectrum of those gravitational pulses. The measured relationship between the peaks of these waves is exactly 1.618. That is the exact golden ratio governing our torus. The universe is actively pulsating and expanding to satisfy an unyielding mathematical equation. Imagine a hypothetical universe where the math worked out neatly, a universe where the spiral somehow managed to close perfectly on its very first try. Without the gap, that universe is a flawless, frictionless void. It contains absolutely no stars, no energy, and complete, total darkness. Our reality is defined by the failure to close that loop. The endless geometric friction generated by the gap's inability to connect creates immense, concentrated pressure. The energy generated by that mathematical pressure leaks out of the gap. As it escapes, it cools to form elementary particles, then hydrogen, which eventually ignites into stars and massive galaxies. If the universe's architecture were structurally perfect, nothing would exist inside it to witness that perfection. The energy spilling from that gap forged heavy elements in the hearts of dying stars, creating the necessary conditions for planets, oceans, and eventually human consciousness. We look up at the night sky and find the universe mysterious because we are made entirely of the 5% anomaly. We are trying to perceive the invisible 95% structure that contains us. It is the equivalent of a fish trying to comprehend the concept of an ocean, unable to see the water because it has never existed outside of it. Because the transcendental math of pi is eternal, the gap will never close, the geometry will never resolve, and the universe will never stop generating new light. We are the mathematical flaw in the architecture of eternity, and that very flaw is the only reason we are alive.